Hey guys, glad you stopped back by. So today, as I alluded to in yesterday's video, we are going to do cutout pumpkin cookies. They're going to be pumpkin shaped cutout cookies, but you could literally just make these into rounds or, whatever shape you like, ghosts, And we're going to do a royal icing on them. So they're going to be a pumpkin spice flavored cookie. Closer to a pumpkin pie cookie, because basically it has, even though I'm going to give you the parts individually, it's a pumpkin pie pumpkin spice with some pumpkin in the cutout cookie. I think it's going to be really good. And like I said, we're going to top it with a royal icing. We'll make it orange because we're going to do pumpkins, but you can just easily leave it white and do leaves, or you can do anything you want with them. That's the beauty of cutout cookies. You can even make a frosting versus a royal icing. I just prefer a royal icing. I think it'll be amazing. This isn't a hard cookie to make. It's a little more forgiving than a traditional cutout cookie. I find with most cutouts that I've ever made in my lifetime, at any rate, before we're coming across a recipe that I truly liked and then modifying it to something that better suited me, was you would get it rolled out, get your first batch cut out, and by the time you get your first batch cut out, your dough is so soft you'd have to put it back in the fridge. And that just, to get it to firm back up so you could roll it out again and do it over, and it seemed very time consuming. This dough here, it's one time in the fridge after you make it, and that's it. And that's just to get everything to calm down a little bit and firm it up enough that you don't leave fingerprints in the cutouts. That's it. And you don't even have to do that. But anyhow, that being said, if you're new, welcome. Hope you get something out of this video. Maybe check out some of the others. If you're returning or one of our new subscribers, thank you and welcome back. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Comments are always welcomed. I respond to all of them, good, bad, or indifferent. All I ask is you be nice. Think before you type. So that being said, one last thing. I will be giving you all your measurements in tablespoons, teaspoons, cups, and I will also be giving them to you in grams and milliliters. That way everybody can play along, right? All right, well, let's head on down here to the counter and we will get started on this cookies. All right, hold on for me 1 second. All right, we are down here at the counter. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mix all our dry ingredients together. And it's not hard, it's not complicated by any stretch of the imagination. First thing I have in my bowl, I have a medium-sized mixing bowl, is 4 cups, 480 grams of regular all-purpose flour. Nothing fancy, nothing special. To that, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup, 30 grams of cornstarch. I find cornstarch helps hold these cookies together, but if you put too much in it, the more you put in it, the firmer it gets. The less you put in it, the less firmer it gets. And I have found that 30 grams is about the spot on amount to make a cutout cookie soft enough, stay soft long enough, because it can get hard quick if you're not careful. And I know some people appreciate a harder cookie, cutout cookie. Me, not so much. I don't want them mushy and falling apart, but I don't want them to be so firm that they hurt my teeth. So I find about 30 to 35 grams works for me, depending on the cookie I'm making. So I've got 30 grams, 1/4 cup of cornstarch in there. To that, I'm gonna add a 1.5 teaspoons, 3 grams of cinnamon, followed by 3/4 teaspoon, 1/2 gram of ground ginger, and we are going to add a 1/4 teaspoon. I could not get a gram weight on my scale, but I'm going to guess it's probably right around 1/4 gram of fresh ground nutmeg. Now, if you don't have fresh ground nutmeg, you can most certainly use pre-ground from the store nutmeg. Not a big deal, but I have found that if I just use, fresh nutmeg, like said nutmeg, I've used half of it, and a grate, or if you don't have one of these per se, they make, if you use your if you have a box grater like this, You know, I use this to slice cheese with. There's one of those on here also. But the fresh nutmeg tastes so much better than the store-bought, and these things last forever. It's a nut. It's a whole nut. It doesn't really ever go bad, go stale, or lose its flavor as long as it's kept in a dry environment. It'll last a long time, and the flavor is amazing. But anyhow, enough of the nutmeg spiel. Then we're going to add a quarter teaspoon, 0.25 a gram of allspice, and then we are going to add an eighth of a teaspoon, or about 0.08 of a gram if your scale goes down that low. But an eighth of a teaspoon, which is basically just a little pinch, I don't know if you can actually see that or not, of cloves. It's ground cloves. Cloves are something you want to, I mean, unless you really like the taste of clove. I like the taste of cloves, but it's something that is very heavy. A little bit goes a long way, so which is why it's only getting an eighth of a teaspoon. So we're going to go ahead and get that mixed up. Once we get this. All right, so we got our stand mixer out, dry, set to the side. And if you're wondering what happens to be in my pressure cooker, I'm actually using the dehydrate function, and I'm dehydrating at this moment banana peppers, but I also have jalapenos I'm going to do, sliced up ones of both. And then I've got some poblano peppers that I'm going to do whole, along with I'm going to say carbonella peppers, but I don't think that's right. But at any rate, I'm dehydrating peppers. Awesome stuff. I figured might as well learn how to use this thing. Haven't really used it much. Why not? But anyhow, we're making cookies. So in my bowl, my stand mixer, which you can also use a hand mixer, and a large bowl, I have got 3/4 of a cup, 171 grams of butter, which is 1.5 sticks. And to this, I am going to add a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar and a 1/2 cup of brown sugar. That's 100 grams of regular plain old granulated sugar and 110 grams of light brown sugar. And the light brown sugar is packed, so if you're putting it in your measuring cup, make sure you press it down so it's packed in there full. And we are going to take that and put that in with our butter like such, and then we're just going to simply mix this on a medium until it's nice, light, and fluffy. Okay, so we got light and fluffy, and I know sometimes it's been a while since I've said this, but light and fluffy, most people don't tell you what light and fluffy is or what its consistency should be, and it's basically just like mashed potatoes, or like a dense cloud. But now you're not going to get, if this didn't have brown sugar in it, to see how it looks like mashed potatoes, light and fluffy. If this didn't have the brown sugar in it, it would be really light in color also, because the butter, unless the butter has like yellow food coloring dyes in it, will become lighter in color as you cream it. So, and that's how you kind of know, that's where they get the light from. Light in color and fluffy looking in nature. It shouldn't be flat. So it should basically look like mashed potatoes. Be the consistency of a dense mashed potato. All right, so we got our bowl scraped down. Next thing we're going to add to this is going to be 1 large egg, 50 grams. Dump that in there, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. And we're just going to mix this until the egg yolk has disappeared. You know, I mean, it's going to change the color of your dough, but until it's disappeared, so you don't see any streaks of yellow. All right, we got that all nice and incorporated. I can't see any streaks, and I'm not going to bother scraping my bowl, but you want to scrape as necessary, you know. Now to this, I'm going to add 122 grams, a 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree, right there. So with pumpkin puree, I have my own canned pumpkin, and you can most certainly use fresh pumpkin if you have it. But with canned pumpkin, this is one of the few things I buy that's canned that I use fairly regular, it provides you a moisture consistency. Using fresh pumpkin, you can actually have it may take longer to make your cookies, especially cookies. They could be uneven because of the amount of moisture, so it may take longer for you to cook them or bake them. You might have one that has a little more in it than the other. I mean, there's a lot of variance, so I recommend using canned pumpkin for this. Pies are a little different, but yeah, canned pumpkin for the cookies, in my opinion. But you better than anybody, so whatever you like to do. All right, so we got our pumpkin in there, so now we're gonna go ahead and get that mixed in until it's nice and combined. All right, we got our pumpkin nice and combined. We'll go ahead and give our bowl here a quick scrape down. Make sure all our wet ingredients are nice and combined and playing well together, because you never really get a dead spot. And whether it's you have a hand mixer, a stand mixer, unless you are mixing everything by hand, which you could do this by hand, if that's what you so desire. Let's say you don't own a stand mixer. Let's say you don't own a hand mixer, which if you don't own a stand mixer, that's quite all right. They're expensive. You could do all of this by hand. I don't. It makes my hand tired. I'm older and I have arthritis, and that's just the way it goes. So we got that nice and combined. Everything's looking good in the bowl. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add our dry ingredients in, and we're going to do this in 2 parts. So I'm going to put half of it in there, and then once that's incorporated, I'll go ahead and get the other half in there, and we'll mix them until it's just combined. All right, so we got it all nice and mixed up. There we are right there. And so I want to chill this for about a half hour. And that's mostly just to let everything rest and play. And like I said a few minutes ago, it helps firm it up enough that you don't get fingerprints on it. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out of the bowl here. I mean, obviously, I'm sitting here doing it. But what we'll do is we're going to go ahead, I'm going to make this just one big giant round. Because even though, and this might be something you don't know. Oh, my dehydrator just ended. Ugh. We're going to let those cool off. I'll show you them here in a second. But with like a pie crust, you want to separate the crust, the pie crust, before you put it in the fridge, and you want to make it into a round shape. With these, since I'm not making it into a round shape, I'm just doing one giant log. I'm not going to separate the dough into 2 parts. I'll just separate it. I'll just do it as one whole part here, or one whole thing. And then once it's chilled, before I cut them out, I'll cut this in half and roll it out. Because I'm just going to roll it out into a rectangle, and I'll use half at a time. So anyhow, I'm going to get this wrapped up, get this in the fridge, and when I come back, we'll roll this out and do some cutouts. All right, I'll see you here in a second. All right, y'all, we got our dough has been in the fridge for about a half hour, 40 minutes. I guess I tried watching YouTube. And so now I got half of it out. The other half's still in the fridge. It's warm in here with the dehydrator going. I didn't want to leave it sit out and let it get too soft. But all I did was throw some flour down on my baking mat. I use a baking mat. And then I'll just simply coat both sides of it, because this dough is a little sticky. It's not like a normal cutout dough because of the brown sugar and the pumpkin. It makes it a little sticky and not quite as firm, but it's still fairly firm. Now I'm gonna roll this out to a 1/4 inch thick, and if you watched any of my pie crust videos, this has been the greatest tool ever. It keeps things consistent, especially if you decide you want to start selling cookies or pies, things like that. I've got a 1/4 inch spacer on there, which means that this dough won't go any thinner than a 1/4 inch, which is what I make pretty much all my cutout cookies at. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll this out into a rectangle. I'll roll it one direction, then turn it over, and I'll roll it out the other direction. All right, we got it rolled out, just like such. And then in this case, I'm going to do some of them pumpkin shaped, like that. I have a pumpkin cutout. And then I'll do some in rounds, so that way we have a little bit of both. But all I'll do is just simply take my my pumpkin cutout, get them cut out, and I'll put them here on the parchment paper on my baking sheet. Okay, so when I get down to this point here where I've got dough left, obviously, and I've got 5 cookies out of that first round, I would simply go ahead and take this, fold it back up on itself, just like such. And you will notice that as you work with the dough, it doesn't stay as sticky, and that's a good thing. You know, the flour is helping to keep it from being sticky like that. But I'll go ahead and get this folded together, just like such. Not necessarily kneading it, but I am folding it. And then I'll just grab some of this flour that's still on my thing, and I'll go ahead and get this rolled out, and I'll just keep doing that until I'm down to a minimal amount of dough, and then that little bit of extra I have left out of this side, I'll just add to the other side when I go to do the rounds. Alright guys, so we got all our cookies cut out. I got a dozen of the pumpkin. I got 10.5 of the rounds, which is okay. It's not like they're for anybody, so us. And sometimes when you're working with cutouts, I mean, if you have a larger cutout, you're not going to get as many, so it left me a little shy on the rounds, but that's alright. I'd much rather have pumpkin looking ones. So what do we do now? So now I'm going to kick my oven on to 375, and I'm going to take my cookies and I'm going to stick them in the fridge for about 15 minutes while that warms up and cycles a couple times. After that, I'll get them in the oven, 1 sheet at a time. Oven's not big enough for 2. And I'm going to let these bake for 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to look at them at the 10-minute mark, and what I'm going to be looking for is the edges should start to be turning a golden brown. Yeah, at least be a little darker than the orange color they already are. And then that way, they should still be slightly soft in the middle. I'll show you when I get down the bottom will be a nice color also, a nice golden brown color, but you'll see. So when I get back, we will have these out of the oven, take a look at them, and talk about what to do next. All right, hold on for me 1 second. Okay, so we got the first batch out of the oven, right? And I got the second batch getting ready to go in right now. Let me throw these in here real quick. That in there, set the timer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to let these cool for 2 minutes on the rack. And I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. Let me shut that door real quick. But if you look, I can see it better, but you may be able to see it too. But the edges and sides are a little darker in color, and the bottom has a nice golden look to it compared to the top. And that is not the coolest cookie in the world. See how it's kind of light on the top, but the bottom has a nice golden look to it? That's what we're looking for. So once these have cooled for a couple minutes sitting here, I'll go ahead and transfer them to this rack here, and I'm gonna let them cool down until they're completely cool, room temperature cool. So when I come back, we're gonna go ahead and make the royal icing that's gonna go on top of these. All right, I'll see you here in just a second. Okay, so our cookies have cooled, and now we're on to making the icing. I'm gonna show you how to make our royal icing. But I'm not going to waste our time putting the food coloring in it and all that stuff. But I am going to show you them being decorated, and then we'll try them afterwards. Chris is actually going to decorate them, so it'll just be a snippet of her decorating them, and then we'll look at it afterwards. But anyhow, let's go ahead and hop down here to the mixer. I'm going to bring you in on the mixer, so that way, yeah, you won't see me really, more so the mixer. So that way you can see what I'm seeing as we make it. All right, hold on for me just 1 second. Okay, we're back down here on the counter. There is our mixer. So the first thing we need to do, we're gonna use a paddle attachment for this. Now, of course, if you're using a hand mixer, you don't have a paddle attachment, just use your whisks. But I've got 3 large egg whites right here. It's about 75 grams. And we're gonna put that in there. What we're gonna do is, we're gonna mix these on a medium low until we start to get soft peaks. So we've got soft peaks. Let me show you real quick what that looks like, if you can see in there. But see how it's all bubbles? right there, it's bubbles. I mean, there's a little bit of egg white left in the bottom there, but that's okay. That's what we want. So the next thing we're gonna do is I've got it's 450 grams worth of powdered sugar. I want to say it's 5.5 cups. I'm sorry, 3.5 cups. Ooh, that'd have been a lot. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn this on low, just like any other time you use powdered sugar or confectioner sugar. You don't want this bad boy on high or you'll end up with it in your face. But what we're going to do is we're just going to slowly put this 3.5 cups in, about a cup at a time. And we're going to let it mix, and we're going to scrape it down about every cup or so that we put in there, because it's going to take more than 3.5 times into this container. But we're going to get this mixed up, you know, really good. Okay, so we have all our powdered sugar in there. So I'll go ahead and stop it real quick. And I don't have to do a whole lot to it, but I want to wipe, see all that powdered sugar there on the side? We want to get that off of there. Just like such, or at least as good as we can. We're going to start mixing this on a high speed and it'll take care of the rest of that, but we want to get, never hurts to scrape, you know, when it comes to baking. Alright, so we got that on there. So the next thing we're going to do is, like, see right now we're really runny, right? You know, it's almost like the icing you would use for to drizzle onto donuts or something like that, only it would turn them white. And I don't know about you, but powdered sugar seems to get everywhere when I make icing. But at any rate, we're going to turn this back on about a medium speed, and I'm going to take 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and I'm going to put that in there. Now what I'm going to do is, if you have a stand mixer, I turn mine up to 6, and I don't go any higher than 6. And if you have a hand mixer, I'm sure it'll be about the same, but you don't want to kick it all the way up to high speed. 6 is about good. If you can get to 7, you know, in between the 6 and 8 number, if you have KitchenAid, perfect. But I'm going to let this go until I get almost stiff peaks. Almost. Okay, so we've been running for a few minutes, and I'm pretty sure we're not there, but what we're going to do is I'm going to stop this for a second and get most of the icing off of there. And you want to work quickly, because I don't know if you guys know anything about cement trucks, but the reason why they turn is so the cement inside of them does not dry up. So icing, royal icing is kind of the same way. If you're not careful and you let it sit long enough, like we'll leave this right here just so you can see, that will start to dry up and it won't be usable. It'll end up putting chips into your icing. But you want to give it a good mix, and you want to see where you're at, because you can overmix this, and you won't know that you've overmixed it till you've iced your cookies and they're dry. But I don't know if you can see that or not. Yes. But what I'm looking for is, see how that kind of leans over? So we're still at a not like a semi-stiff peak, but I want it a little stiffer. I don't want it standing straight up and down. Now, if you get it to that point where you have a completely stiff peak, because you're looking for something you can put through a piping bag. You can just add like a little bit of water at a time. We actually have a spray bottle that we use to add water a little bit at a time to the icing, so that way it's thin enough to put it through. But you're looking for like a medium peak, borderline stiff. So I'm gonna let this go for a couple more minutes, and then we'll take a look. Okay, so I let her go about another 2-3 minutes, but see now how we've got that peak that's just, it's kind of flopping over, but it's struggling to do so. And then if you can see down there in the bowl, there's one that's just sticking pretty much straight up. That is close to stiff peaks as I want to get. I want it to fall over just a hair. That way I know it'll go through a piping bag without a whole lot of adjustment. Now what I was talking about with how quickly this gets hard, see, I don't know if you can actually tell or not, but that's hard as a rock. It's chipped up. It's, you know, it's to the point where that doesn't go away. So that'll end up in your thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this in a container because she's not home right away, my high-end Tupperware container. And then we can talk about how to keep this for a second. All right, hold on for me just one moment. Okay, so I've got her in our handy dandy container. I'm going to leave this sit on the counter, well, over at the table, because she's going to be home here in about an hour and a half and she'll start decorating. Now, if you were not going to use this, say like within a couple hour period, put it in the fridge. But you want to make sure either way it goes, you have a container with a lid and then it's fairly airtight. I will even go as far as to, like, if I'm going to make this for today, making it today for tomorrow, I will take a piece of plastic wrap and I will put it over the top of this and then stick the lid on it. That way I can ensure that there's no air going around inside of it, because what that does is it dries out your icing. So I'm going to go ahead and get this over to the table. When she gets home, we can take a look at her decorating real quick, and then we can try one. All right, I'll see you here in a second. Alright guys, there we are. Complete cookies from beginning to end. I think those look amazing. Hands down. And she decorates way better than I could ever hope to. They just really are very pretty, but I mean, although I would find it incredibly complicated, these are by no means the most complex cookie she's done. Chris has had some really challenging cookies over the last couple of years, but I think those just look phenomenal. Alright, so all we got left to do is try one. And we'll take the one that Chris told me to take. She said it was the least prettiest of the bunch, but I still think it looks pretty cool, right? So, yes. I will tell you, I did accidentally eat part of a cookie earlier without the icing on it. And it was quite soft, tender, delicious, just everything you could hope for in a cookie. But obviously not so, you know, tender and soft that it would fall apart. So, but anyhow, this video has gone long enough. I really want you guys to understand how to make a good royal icing, and what to look for, things to look for in that batter. And now for the main event. That's really good. Sorry. That is glass of milk worthy, but it is soft. It's got a nice pumpkin spice flavor to it. It tastes just like pumpkin pie. And that royal icing just kind of sends it over the top. It's kind of like when you put whipped topping on top of a piece of pie. It just adds that little bit to it. That's a really good cookie. I think your family would be amazed. Your friends would be impressed. Co-workers, mailman guy walking down the street. Yeah, that family playing across the street in the yard that they haven't talked to in 6 months. They would enjoy these. It'd be a really good conversation, I think. If you make these, give them a try. Or let me know. If you make them, give me a try. That made no sense, right? But if you make them, let me know down in the comments. I'd be curious to see what you think, because I think they're amazing. They are a great representation of fall, and I think would be a nice dessert after that chowder that we made yesterday. Hands down. Next week, no clue. None at all. I guarantee you that we will not be eating something healthy, and that dessert probably won't be healthy either. But that's as far as we've gotten. You guys know me well enough to know I never know what we're going to do till the morning of. But that's okay, because that's the best way to do things sometimes, right? Last minute and on the cuff. So, till next week, I love you. I love you very much. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Tell somebody else that you love them and that you love them very much. They may need to hear it. It's going to make them smile either way it goes. It's going to make you smile and feel pretty good to tell them. I guarantee you that. And if you make them some of these cookies, I guarantee that they're going to know that they're loved, and they're going to want to hang out. Maybe have a glass of milk, a cup of coffee, depending on who you are and where you're at. And it's going to lead to an afternoon conversation. I guarantee it. So, till next week for dinner, I love you. I'll see you then. All right? See you later. Bye-bye.